These are 4 of the worst, most catastrophic accidents the racing world has ever witnessed. David Savage, or Swede Savage, was a 26-year-old American IndyCar driver and student of racing legend Dan Gurney. He began soapbox derby racing at the age of 5, moved up to racing quarter midget cars, and then at age 12 to go-kart racing. By his mid-teens, he was racing motorcycles competitively. He won the 1970 USAC Phoenix 200 and drove for Pat Patrick's STP-backed team in 1973. The 1973 Indianapolis 500 was scheduled to begin on Monday, May 28th, but the race start was preceded by a 4-hour rain delay. On that day, a near-fatal start line accident involving Salt Walther's car sprayed burning methanol into the stands, injuring spectators and breaking the catch fence. Shortly after the crash, heavy rain returned, preventing any resumption that day and leading to a postponement to Wednesday, May 30th. Savage qualified 4th on the grid and had led laps 43 to 54 in his number 40 Patrick Racing Eagle Offenhauser car. On lap 58 or 59, Savage exited turn 4 of the 2.5-mile oval after a pit stop. His car still carried about 75 gallons of methanol fuel, roughly 500 pounds, and a newly changed right rear tire. The exact cause of Savage's spin remains disputed, but most witnesses report that the heavily fueled rear end of the car twitched on exit due to a new cold tire, causing Savage to lose control and slammed head-on into the inner retaining wall at nearly full racing speed.
Make a pit stop. That could give Savage the lead again. Yes, he is. Oh my God, it's Savage! What a friend. God, right. That is the worst thing.
The race is stopped.
The impact shattered the chassis. Wheels, engine, and body panels were torn off and scattered, and the methanol fuel instantly ignited in a massive fireball. Burning fuel sprayed across the track. Safety crews immediately waved a red flag. Savage's cockpit was shattered. He slid out across the track and came to rest at the outside wall of the track, trapped in flaming methanol. Remarkably, he remained conscious and moved in the wreckage, even attempting to escape the flames. In the middle of the chaos, 23-year-old Armando Terran, working in the pits for Savage's teammate, was struck from behind by a fire truck reversing toward the crash site and succumbed in hospital. Savage stayed conscious as rescuers extricated him and transported him to Methodist Hospital in Indianapolis. He had suffered third-degree burns over approximately 60% of his body. His face, arms, hands, and lungs were damaged by methanol flames and extreme heat, and both legs were fractured. Savage survived for 33 days before succumbing to complications from his injuries. Ayrton Senna was a Brazilian Formula One legend, a 3-time world champion, and renowned as one of the sport's greatest drivers. He arrived in Formula One in 1984 and immediately turned heads with his mastery in the rain. By the end of the decade, he was locked in an iconic McLaren rivalry with Alain Prost. Across 10 seasons, he collected 65 pole positions and 41 victories, figures that stood as the benchmark of that era. In 1994, Senna shifted to Williams, the team that had secured the last 2 titles. However, regulation changes that outlawed electronic driver aids like active suspension and traction control left Senna's Williams FW16 in poor handling, and despite starting all 3 opening rounds from pole, he couldn't reach the finish in any of them. The 1994 San Marino Grand Prix at Imola was the weekend's marquee event. The spring weather was fair, but the weekend turned tragic. On Saturday, Roland Ratzenberger was killed in qualifying. The very next day, on May 1st, Senna was leading the Grand Prix when on lap 7, he suddenly ran wide at the high-speed Tamburello corner. His car left the track and struck an unprotected concrete wall almost head-on at roughly 131 miles per hour.
Senna bateu forte. Ali na Tamburello. A batida muito forte.
Ayrton Senna was killed by a combination of fatal injuries sustained during the crash, primarily a severe skull fracture and brain injuries caused by a piece of suspension from his car piercing his helmet. Ratzenberger's and Senna's death were the first F1 fatalities since Gilles Villeneuve in 1982, marking one of the darkest weekends in the sport's history, to a point it was known as F1's Black Weekend. Technical investigators zeroed in on Senna's Williams FW16, especially a steering column that had been shortened at his request and weakened by a crude cut and weld job that left a fatigue crack, confirmed by electron microscope analysis after the crash. Prosecutors pounced, launching a sprawling manslaughter case that initially targeted Frank Williams, Patrick Head, Adrian Newey, and several officials. Most were dropped by 1997, and in 1999, Head and Newey were acquitted because the court couldn't prove the cracked column actually caused the accident, especially with Williams's own tests and the car's on-track behavior muddying the waters. The exact cause of the crash has been debated for decades, with no single explanation universally accepted. Adrian Newey later remarked that regardless of cause, the faulty design was unacceptable and lessons were learned. Eddie Sachs and Dave MacDonald entered the 1964 Indianapolis 500 as established stars of U.S. motorsports. Sachs, nicknamed the Clown Prince of Racing, was a popular Indianapolis veteran who had won numerous championship races. He had finished second in the 1961 Indy 500 and third in 1962, and was known for his speed and showmanship. MacDonald was a former drag racer and Corvette and Shelby driver from California. In the early 1960s, he had become one of the country's most successful sports car racers, winning dozens of events with his Corvette and Shelby Cobra. By 1964, he had been recruited by Carroll Shelby to drive a Cobra and even dabble in NASCAR, and he had signed a contract to make his Indy 500 debut in a new car. American open-wheel racing underwent a transition during the 1964 Indy 500. Rear-engine cars, notably the Jim Clark-driven Lotus, and various Novi and Ford-powered specials, were demonstrating clear speed advantages over the traditional front-engine roadsters. MacDonald, in Sears Allstate Special No. 83 for Mickey Thompson's team, was racing in one of the new low-slung Fords, while Sachs drove his number 25 Ford V8 Roadster. On lap 2, as the cars accelerated after exiting turn 4, MacDonald's car suddenly lost control, struck the inside wall, and burst into flame. His burning car then ricocheted off the wall and spun back onto the track toward oncoming race traffic, emitting a curtain of orange flames and thick black smoke. Sachs, running 2 car lengths behind, struck MacDonald's car broadside. Sachs died instantly from massive trauma, and MacDonald died around 2 hours later from burns and lung damage. Several other cars, such as those of Norm Hall, Ronnie Duman, Chuck Stevenson, Bobby Unser, and Johnny Rutherford, narrowly escaped the wreckage but were shaken or damaged. Under a red flag, emergency crews battled the flames. It was nearly 2 hours before the cleanup was complete and the race could resume. Investigators who examined the accident concluded that MacDonald lost control due to possible aerodynamic error, as the car was originally engineered for 12-inch wheels, but Indy rules required 15-inch ones, which made the car too high and gave it less downforce, and there was no evidence of mechanical failure beyond the violent collision. The crash's high fatality drew attention to gasoline's intense fire compared to methanol. In response, USAC mandated methanol fuel for all Indy 500 cars starting in 1965. Later, engineers added safety features like tough, breakaway rubber bladders in fuel cells to contain fuel during impacts. Pierre Levet was a veteran French sportsman and race car driver who had competed at Le Mans since before World War II. By 1955, he was one of France's elder statesman drivers. He had built a reputation for endurance. At the 1952 Le Mans, he famously drove nearly the entire 24 hours alone in a Talbot, building a 3-lap lead before a late engine failure that cost him victory. The 1955 Le Mans race was highly anticipated as a duel between the reigning world sports car powers. Ferrari, Jaguar, and Mercedes-Benz all fielded new or improved cars, with Mike Hawthorne in a Jaguar D-Type and Juan Manuel Fangio, Sterling Moss, and Levet with Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR. On lap 35 of the race, afternoon on June 11th, the Jaguar of Mike Hawthorne unexpectedly swerved off to enter the pits. Directly behind Hawthorne was Lance Macklin in a privately entered Austin Healey 100. Macklin, who was caught by surprise, jerked his Healey outwards to avoid the slowing Jaguar, moving right into the path of Levet, who was coming up fast on the left. The Mercedes was much faster than both cars ahead, and Levet had little time to react. Levet's Mercedes struck the rear of Macklin's Healey at very high speed, estimated around 125 miles per hour, and ran up over its sloping tail, then launched through the air into the spectator area. The car first clipped a concrete stairway, then disintegrated with a loud bang. The Mercedes's straight-8 engine block, radiator, axle, and other heavy components were hurled into the packed crowd. For perspective, part of the car, including the 3-liter engine, landed more than 300 feet from the crash point. Within seconds, 81 to 83 spectators in the front rows were killed by the flying debris, and Levet himself lay beneath the burning wreckage of his Mercedes. Incredibly, the race was not stopped. The organizers made no public announcement of the disaster. They believed that abruptly halting the race and emptying around 200,000 people onto the roads would trap ambulances and rescue vehicles. Instead, the race continued through the night with the Mercedes team withdrawing by the midnight. Bueb and Hawthorne's Jaguar crossed the finish line early Sunday morning and was declared the winner, though victory was overshadowed. Hawthorne's infamous images of him casually sipping champagne on the podium would haunt him in press coverage after the tragedy that, in my opinion, was also caused by him. Just 4 years on, in 1959, Hawthorne died in a tragic high-speed crash while driving his Jaguar and attempting to pass a Mercedes gullwing on a wet road.